These are tricks totally illegal that not you should do ever, or that is what to you they would say, so that you continue committing errors and wasting up to a 90% of power with your car. For that, an old mechanic retired me explained that the majority of the drivers die without having known ever the true potential of their vehicle. The brands, pressured by governmental regulations asphyxiating and the necessity of selling cars that last exactly what lasts their warranty, deliver machines that are operating barely at the 60% of their capacity real. Your car is not slow, your car is in a prison of software and compromises mechanical designed for the driver most clumsy and negligent of the planet. And is for that, today we go to break the seals of that prison, as we will submerge in the transformation internal, that series of changes that not require of big budgets but yes of a knowledge that the brands prefer to maintain under key. But make sure to stay because to you I will reveal in the post number 1 of the modifications most cheap, simple and stupidly effective that you can perform in your own garage. Prepare yourself to enter in the underworld of the mechanics of elite, where the efficiency becomes in aggression and the engineering transforms in art. Number 14, the reset of the learning adaptive of the transmission. In the heart of the majority of the vehicles, modern beats a unit of control of the transmission that is much more intelligent and at the same time more lazy of what you imagine. This system, known technically as management adaptive of the box of changes, has been designed to observe each one of your movements as if it were a spy silent. Analyzes the pressure that you exert over the pedal of the accelerator, the speed at which you move the foot, the frequency of your brakings and the time that you pass in idle. With this information, the computer creates a profile of driving that seeks the maximum refinement and the minimum consumption of fuel. The problem arises when that profile itself becomes too conservative due to the routine daily of the traffic jams and the driving urban. When you pass weeks driving from home to the work in middle of the traffic, the unit of control of the transmission decides that you are a driver that values the smoothness overall. To please you, begins to reduce the pressure hydraulic of the clutch's internal so that the changes be imperceptible, delays the response of the accelerator to avoid jerks and seeks always the gear most long possible to maintain the revolutions low. The result is a car that feels disconnected, slow and frustrating when finally you decide to demand it power in a road open. Not is that the engine has lost force, is that the transmission has forgotten how to fight. The change illegal here consists in to execute a protocol of reset deep that erases by complete this memory of adaptation, returning the logic of the transmission to its values original of factory. Depending of the brand of your car, this can imply a sequence of pulsations in the accelerator with the contact put but the engine off, or the use of a tool of diagnostic by port of communication serial. Upon performing this procedure, you eliminate the laziness electronic accumulated. In the moment in which you return to start the car after this reset, the transmission itself finds in a state of alert maximum. The changes become sharp, the reductions of gear are instantaneous, and the sensation of delay between your foot and the wheels disappears by complete. It is as if to it you had injected a dose of adrenaline to the system nervous central of your car, allowing it to react with a ferocity that you thought that only existed in the catalogues of sales. This process of learning is continuous, by what the mechanics veterans recommend to perform this reset each time that you feel that the car begins to soften. Upon erasing the bad habits of the computer, you allow that the hardware work at its maximum capacity mechanical. It is the first step fundamental for any transformation. To eliminate the filters digital that the manufacturers impose to protect the comfort of the passengers at cost of the soul of the machine. A car that reacts fast is a car more safe and definitely much more exciting of to drive. Number 13, the airbox mod and the optimization of the induction dynamic. To understand why the change number 13 is so radical, first we must understand that an engine of combustion internal is, in essence, a pump of air giant. Its capacity for to generate energy depends directly of how much air can suck, compress and mix with fuel. The manufacturers, however, have a priority that often clashes with the performance pure, the silence of March. So that the engine not emit a roar of suction that could scare to the client average, the engineers fill the system of admission with chambers of resonance, tubes restrictive, deflectors of plastic and roots tortuous that serve as silencers natural. Each one of these pieces represents an obstacle physical that the air must bypass, generating turbulences and a loss of pressure that asphyxiates the potential of the engine. The airbox mod is one of the modifications most misunderstood and underestimated in the world of the performance automotive. Many enthusiasts commit the error of to buy filters of air of cone cheap that end absorbing the air hot of the bay engine. The air hot is less dense in oxygen, what causes that the computer of the car reduce the injection of fuel to avoid damages, resulting in a loss net of power. The true transformation occurs when we optimize the box of air original. Upon opening this component, often we discover a labyrinth of plastics designed to cancel frequencies sound. The first step of this change is to eliminate physically all these deflectors and to smooth the walls internal of the box of air to eliminate any point of friction unnecessary. But the part really strategic of this change is the creation of an induction-forced natural. Many cars suck air from a zone protected and warm near the radiator. The mod implies to redirect or to expand the pipe of entry towards a zone of high pressure in the part front of the vehicle, ideally behind the grille or in the pass of wheel inferior, where the air is significantly more cold and itself finds at a pressure greater when the car is in movement. Upon doing this, you transform the box of air into a chamber of pressure positive. At measure that increases the speed, the air is pushed towards the filter with greater force, overcoming the resistance natural of the system and feeding the cylinders with a charge of oxygen much more rich and dense. This change not only translates into an increase notable of the torque engine in the range medium of revolutions, but that also improves the efficiency of the fuel under conditions of cruise. Upon requiring less effort to suck the air, the engine works with a charge of pumping minor. The sound that emanates from the hood changes by complete. Stops of to be a buzz anemic to become in a suction deep and powerful that to you indicates that the engine is breathing to full lung for first time in its life useful. It is an improvement of engineering pure that respects the protection thermal of the box original but eliminates the restrictions that the accountants and specialists in marketing imposed over the designer's original of the engine. Number 12. The installation of a system of decantation of oil of grade professional. The secret number 12 US leads to the depths of a problem that affects silently to all the engines modern, especially to those endowed of injection direct of fuel. In an attempt to reduce the emissions polluting, the manufacturers have perfected the system of ventilation positive of the crankcase. During the functioning of the engine, a small quantity of gases of combustion and vapors of oil hot themselves leak by the rings of the pistons towards the crankcase. To avoid that these gases harmful escape to the atmosphere or destroy the seals of the engine by overpressure, they are recirculated of return to the admission to be burned of new in the cylinders. The problem is that these vapors of oil, hot, mixed with humidity and remains of fuel, are extremely sticky. In the engines old, the gasoline itself injected before of the valves of admission, what served to bathe and to clean constantly the valves of any residue. However, in the engines of injection direct modern, the fuel itself injects directly in the chamber of combustion. This means that the valves of admission never are washed by the gasoline. With the pass of the time, the vapors of oil that recirculate from the crankcase themselves bake over the valves of admission hot, forming a crust of carbon hard and porous that grows like a cancer mechanical. This accumulation restricts the flow of air, provokes turbulences that ruin the mixture air fuel and can arrive to cause failures of ignition, loss of power massive and an increase drastic in the consumption of diesel or gasoline. The installation of a decanter of oil, known professionally as oil catch can, is the surgery preventive definitive for this evil. This device itself interposes in the line of recirculation of vapors. Its interior not is a simple boat empty, contains a series of baffles, grills of steel stainless and chambers of condensation designed to cool the vapors of oil of form sudden. Upon cooling, the oil itself condenses and itself separates of the gases, falling to the bottom of the deposit and allowing that only the air clean and free of residues return to the admission of the engine. It is a modification that the manufacturers not include of series by a reason purely logistic. Requires that the owner of the car empty the deposit manually each certain time, and they know that the majority of the drivers themselves would forget of to do it. Upon implementing this system, you are protecting the health of the lungs of your car. Some valves of admission clean ensure that the aerodynamics internal of the engine itself maintain exactly as they designed the engineers in the computer of simulation. The difference in the smoothness of the idle and in the response instantaneous of the turbo is immediate after a few thousand of kilometers of use. It is the difference between an engine that asphyxiates slowly with its own residue and one that breathes air pure, maintaining its power maximum during hundreds of thousands of kilometers. For any engine turbocharged, this change is absolutely mandatory if the objective is to transform the car into a machine of high performance capable of to support abuses continuous without losing efficiency. Number 11. The reinforcement of the infrastructure electric or Big 3 upgrade. We arrive to the post number 11 to speak of the system most ignored by the enthusiasts of the speed. The system electric. The majority of the persons see their car as a set of pieces of metal moving between themselves, but the reality is that a vehicle modern is a network computing of high speed that depends of impulses electric precise for to function. Each time that a spark plug fires a spark, each time that an injector itself opens by barely a few milliseconds, and each time that a sensor of oxygen sends a reading to the unit central, itself depends of the quality of the flow electric. However, to save weight and costs of fabrication, the cables that connect the components principal usually are thin, of quality inferior and prone to the resistance electric at measure that they age and themselves oxidize. The Big 3 upgrade consists in to substitute or to reinforce 3 cables fundamental of the system electric with cable of caliber industrial, generally of copper pure and with a thickness much greater to the of factory. These cables are the one that goes from the alternator to the pole positive of the battery, the one that connects the pole negative of the battery to the chassis of the car, and the one that connects the block of the engine to the chassis. It can appear a change minor, but its effects are seismic. Upon reducing the resistance electric of these points critical, you allow that the alternator work with less effort and that the battery itself charge of form much more efficient. But the most important happens in the systems of management of the engine. With an infrastructure electric robust, the voltage of the car itself stabilizes. In place of having fluctuations that confuse to the sensors sensitive, the system receives a current pure and constant. This means that the coils of ignition can generate a spark much more potent and hot, ensuring that each drop of fuel in the chamber of combustion itself burn by complete. The injectors of fuel, which are essentially electromagnets of high precision, react with greater speed and exactitude, optimizing the delivery of power in all the range of revolutions. Additionally, this change eliminates noises electric that can affect the quality of the sound of the system of audio and the speed of processing of the central unit. Many mechanics veterans have seen how cars that suffered of idle unstable, jerks inexplicable or lights that flickered upon turning on the air conditioned themselves cure instantly with this change. It is like to clean the arteries of an athlete so that the blood flow without obstacles. If you plan to add more power by means of a reprogramming or pieces mechanical heavy, the Big 3 upgrade is the base over which you must build. Without a current electric perfect, the engine most potent of the world will be slow in its reactions. It is a change that not itself sees to simple view, but that itself feels in the tip of the fingers each time that you demand a response immediate to the machine. Number 10. The elimination of the flexion parasitic by means of bushings of polyurethane. When you step on the accelerator of your car, itself unleashes a battle of forces physical under the hood. The engine generates a torque massive that attempts to rotate the crankshaft, but by the third law of Newton, that same torque attempts to rotate the engine complete in the direction opposite within the bay engine. To avoid that these vibrations and movements arrive to the cabin and bother to the passengers, the manufacturers use supports of engine fabricated with a rubber very soft, often designed with cavities hollow to maximize the absorption of impacts. The problem is that that rubber is so flexible that, under a driving aggressive, allows that the engine itself balance several centimeters before that the power arrive really to the wheels. That movement excessive itself knows as flexion parasitic and is one of the greatest thieves of performance in a car of street. Each millimeter that the engine itself displaces in its supports is energy that not itself is transmitting to the asphalt. Additionally, this balance causes the infamous wheel hop or rebound of the wheel's front, where the tires lose and gain traction of form violent and erratic in the exits fast, what can destroy the axles and the transmission in matter of seconds. The change number 10 consists in to substitute these bushings of rubber soft, especially in the support of torsion inferior or dog bone, by components fabricated in polyurethane of high density. The polyurethane is a material that combines the durability of the plastic with the elasticity of the rubber, but with a rigidity significantly greater. Upon installing these bushings, you block the movement unnecessary of the block engine. The transformation in the experience of driving is radical. Of sudden, the connection between the accelerator and the movement of the car becomes telepathic. When you accelerate, the car itself launches towards forward instantly because the engine already not spends time in twisting itself within the chassis. Additionally, the changes of gear in the car's manual become much more precise and direct since the linkage of the box of changes remains in its position correct in place of being displaced by the movement of the engine. It is true that this change introduces a slight increase in the vibrations that themselves feel in the cabin when the car is in idle, but for the driver that seeks to transform his auto into a beast, that small sacrifice is a medal of honor. It is the sensation of driving a machine solid and decided, not a toy of plastic softened. To eliminate the flexion parasitic is fundamental for any car that aspires to have a traction perfect and a responsive chassis worthy of a vehicle of competition. It is the step final to anchor the power to the reality physical of the ground. Number 9. The bypass of the valve of delay of the clutch, CDV. This post is dedicated exclusively to those that still defend the art of to drive 3 pedals. In many vehicles of brands of luxury and sports modern, there exists a component hidden in the line hydraulic of the clutch known as the valve of delay of the clutch, or CDV, clutch delay valve. It treats of a small restrictor with an orifice minuscule that limits physically the speed at which the fluid hydraulic can flow when you release the pedal. The manufacturers installed this piece to protect the transmission of drivers that could be too abrupt, ensuring that the clutch always itself engage of form smooth and slow, independently of what so fast you remove the foot. For a driver average, this passes unnoticed, but for someone that seeks the control absolute over his machine, the CDV is a nightmare technical. Makes that the touch of the clutch be inconsistent and spongy. If you attempt to perform a change of gear fast during an acceleration intense, the valve prevents that the clutch bite of immediate, provoking a slip unnecessary that not only to you makes lose time valuable, but that also overheats the disc of clutch and reduces drastically its life useful. It is a nanny electronic disguised of piece mechanical that to you prevents to synchronize perfectly the engine with the transmission. The change illegal in this case is the elimination physical of this restrictor or its substitution by a pipe of flow direct. Upon performing this bypass, you recover the connection mechanical pure. The pedal of the clutch becomes predictable and honest. If you want a change smooth, you modulate with your own foot. If you want a change of competition that hit the wheels with all the fury of the engine, the car finally to you it allows. The gain in the quality of the driving sporting is incalculable. Of sudden, you can perform techniques like the heel and toe with a precision that before appeared impossible. You recover the capacity to feel exactly when the disc touches the flywheel of inertia, transforming the experience of driving from something filtered to something visceral. It is a change cheap, that not requires pieces costly, but that returns the soul to any car with transmission manual. Number 8. The adjustment of the advance of ignition and optimization of the cycle thermal. The time of ignition is the parameter that defines exactly in what moment jumps the spark of the spark plug in relation with the position of the piston. Of factory, the cars come with a map of ignition very conservative. The engineers must foresee that the car can be driven in conditions extreme, with gasoline of low quality or by drivers that ignore the maintenance's basic. For it, they delay the ignition to avoid the detonation or knocking, sacrificing a quantity considerable of power and efficiency thermal. If you commit yourself to utilize uniquely fuel of high octane and to maintain the system of refrigeration in perfect state, the change number 8 to you allows to reclaim that power lost. The adjustment of the advance of ignition, already be by means of the reprogramming of the unit of control, or by means of the adjustment physical of the sensors in engines compatible, allows that the combustion itself initiate a few degrees before. This ensures that the pressure maximum generated by the explosion hit the head of the piston in the angle exact where itself generates the greatest torque over the crankshaft. The result is an engine that itself feels much more awake and with a capacity of response to the accelerator that appears to defy the inertia of the vehicle. But for that this advance of ignition be effective and safe, we must optimize the cycle thermal of the engine. This implies often the installation of a thermostat of minor temperature of opening and the use of spark plugs with a grade thermal more cold. Upon maintaining the chamber of combustion a few degrees by below of the limit of factory, you reduce the risk of detonation, allowing that the engine work in a zone of high efficiency constant. It is a dance delicate between the chemistry of the fuel and the physics of the heat. When itself does correctly, the engine not only generates more horses of force, but that it does with an effort minor, improving even the economy of fuel under conditions of load partial. It is the adjustment final of the transformation internal. To synchronize the pulse of the engine with the maximum capacity of the energy chemical of the diesel or the gasoline. Number 7. The secret of the aerodynamics of Lowe's paneling. The majority of the drivers spend thousands of dollars in spoilers gigantic and splitters front that, in many cases, only add resistance to the advance and weight unnecessary. However, the true battle aerodynamic not itself fights over the bodywork, but below of it. If you look under a supercar of Ferrari or a speedster of Formula 1, you will see a surface so flat and smooth as a table of billiard. In change, if you look under your car of street, you will find a chaos of pipes of exhaust, arms of suspension, the crankcase of the engine and gaps empty that act as parachutes invisible. At high speeds, the air that passes by below of the car becomes turbulent, hitting each one of these components and creating a force of lift that makes that the steering itself feel floating and dangerous, besides of to break the car of form drastic. The secret of the paneling consists in to imitate that architecture of bottoms flat, utilizing materials light as sheets of aluminum or composites plastic of high resistance, as the die bond. The objective is to seal the flow of air from the lip inferior of the bumper front until the axle rear. Upon creating a surface smooth, the air accelerates under the car. According to the principle of Bernoulli, the air that itself moves more fast has a pressure minor. This difference of pressure between the air slow that passes by over and the air fast that passes by below creates an effect of suction that sticks the car to the asphalt without necessity of spoilers that break your speed top. To implement this requires a planning meticulous of the management of the heat, leaving opening strategic, NACA ducts, so that the exhaust and the transmission not themselves overheat. But the results are transformative. The stability in highway improves exponentially. The noise of the wind disappears and the speed top can increase significantly simply because the engine already not has that to fight against the turbulence massive that before dragged under the chassis. It is the trick of efficiency aerodynamic definitive that the brands of luxury hide behind panels of fiber of carbon costly. Number 6. Conversion to coils of high voltage R8 style. In the search of the combustion perfect, the voltage is the king. Many engines modern of 4 and 6 cylinders utilize coils of ignition designed for a use civilized, with an output of energy sufficient to burn a mixture stoichiometric standard. But when we begin to modify the admission, the exhaust or the pressure of the turbo, the density of the air within the cylinder increases so much that the spark original can extinguish itself or become erratic under load extreme. This provokes microfailures of ignition, misfires, that not always activate the witness of breakdown, but that steal horses of force and dirty the engine with fuel not burned. The conversion to coils of high voltage, famous in the community tuning as the red coils of the Audi R8 or systems equivalent of high performance, is a change of game total. These coils are designed to deliver a spark much more long, intense and consistent, even in conditions of pressure internal brutal. Upon installing these pieces, often requiring only an adapter physical or an adjustment minor in the wiring, you allow that the engine work with a gap of spark plug a bit more wide. A spark more big means that the front of flame itself expands of form more fast and uniform by all the chamber of combustion. The effect immediate is a smoothness of march that never you thought that your engine could have. The car starts better in cold, the idle itself stabilizes like a watch Swiss, and, the most important, the delivery of power in the part high of the tachometer becomes linear and without hesitations. You are eliminating the link most weak of the chain of ignition. With a combustion complete, not only you gain power real, but that also you reduce the temperature of the gases of exhaust, protecting your turbo and allowing that the computer advance the time of ignition without risk of detonation. It is the update electric most effective for any engine that pretend to be a beast. Number 5. Bypass of the body of accelerator, coolant bypass. This is a trick of field that the purists of the efficiency thermal adore. Of factory, the majority of the cars have 2 hoses of antifreeze that pass through of the body of the accelerator. The purpose official of this is to avoid that the butterfly itself freeze in climates of cold extreme, as Siberia or the north of Canada, due to the effect of cooling by expansion of the air. However, for the 99% of the drivers in climates temperate or warm, this is a disadvantage massive. The antifreeze that circulates at some 90 degrees centigrade heats physically the body of the accelerator, which at its turn heats the air that is attempting to enter to the engine. As we know, the air hot is the enemy of the power. How much more hot is the air? Less molecules of oxygen contains by centimeter cubic, what obliges to the ECU to inject less fuel to maintain the proportion correct. The coolant bypass consists in to disconnect those two hoses of the body of the accelerator and to unite them between themselves with a connector, leaving that the liquid flow without to heat the admission. It is a modification that costs literally the price of a clamp and 10 minutes of work. Upon maintaining the body of the accelerator cold to the touch, even after hours of driving, you ensure that the air maintain its density maximum just before of to enter to the manifold of admission. The gain can appear small in a bench of power, but the improvement in the response of the accelerator in days hot is notable. You are eliminating a source of heat parasitic that only serves for a condition climatic that probably never you will find. It is engineering logic applied to recover the efficiency that the excess of precaution of the manufacturers to you robbed. Number 4. The deception of the sensor IAT, resistance variable. We enter in the terrain of the tricks of the old school that border what is illegal by its simplicity and effectiveness. The sensor of temperature of air of admission, IAT, is one of the informant's key of the central unit of the car. If the sensor says that the air is hot, the central unit delays the ignition and reduces the gasoline to avoid damages. If the sensor says that the air is cold, the central unit understands that there is more oxygen available and itself becomes more aggressive with the map of fuel and time. The trick consists in to intercept the signal of this sensor utilizing a resistance electric specific or a potentiometer, resistance variable. Upon altering slightly the resistance of the circuit, to it we lie to the computer, making it to believe that the air exterior is between 10 and 15 degrees more cold of what really is. In response, the central unit adjusts the parameters of injection for a mixture more rich and an ignition more advanced. It is, in essence, a reprogramming physical of low cost. However, this trick requires precision. If you exaggerate and to it you say that the air is at -40 degrees, the car will enter in mode of emergency. The objective is to find that point sweet, where the car itself feels more strong and with more torque in low revolutions. It is important to highlight that this trick works better in cars with engines atmospheric or with systems of management less complex, but even in cars modern allows to compensate the loss of performance that occurs when the engine itself heats in the traffic. It is a form artisanal of to take the control over the maps of security of the ECU and to oblige to the machine to give the best of itself in all moment, assuming that the driver knows that he is using fuel of good quality to support that aggressiveness extra. Number 3. Adjustment of the geometry of suspension, aggressive. When you carry your car to a workshop of alignment conventional, the technician simply seeks that the values be in the green that dictates the manufacturer. Those values are designed so that the car be predictable, not itself deviate in line straight and overall, so that it tend to the understeer, that the car itself go of nose in situations of panic, since it is more easy of to control for a driver inexperienced. But if you want a beast that devour the curves, the green of the manufacturer is your enemy. The change number 3 is to request an adjustment of geometry aggressive that the majority of the workshops themselves refuse to do by fear to the wear of the tires. We are speaking of to add negative camber in the axle front. Upon tilting the part superior of the wheels towards inside, you ensure of that, when the car itself supports in a curve strong and the bodywork itself tilts, the surface of contact of the tire exterior be perfectly flat against the ground, offering a grip lateral massive. We complement this with an adjustment of toe near to zero or slightly divergent in the front for an entry in curve instantaneous and aggressive. In the axle rear, a touch of positive toe will help to that the car itself feels stable at high speeds without to sacrifice the agility. This adjustment transforms the car. The steering itself feels more heavy, communicative and precise. The car stops of to fight against the curves to begin to flow through of them. Yes, the tires internal themselves will wear a bit more fast if only you drive in line straight, but the sacrifice values the penalty each time that you feel that the chassis obeys your orders without the most minimum delay. It is the difference between to drive an appliance and to pilot a weapon of precision. To carry this adjustment to the next level, we must speak of the memory elastic of the bushings of series. When you adjust the negative camber, not is enough with to move the bolts eccentric. A trick of field vital is to perform the aligned with the weight of the driver simulated in the seat. A sack of sand of 80 kilos can vary the toe the sufficient as to ruin an entry in curve perfect. Additionally, for the vehicles of traction front, a secret illegal to eliminate the understeer chronic is to adjust the part rear with a slight divergence, toe out. This induces a behavior where the part rear helps to rotate the car in the apex of the curve, allowing you to accelerate much before. It is a configuration that requires hands firm because the car itself becomes nervous in the braking strong, but it is precisely that nervousness what allows to a pilot experience to place the nose of the car with precision surgical where others only find a wall of tires squeaking. Number 2. Short circuit of the fan, low temperature switch. The heat is the killer silent of the performance. The majority of the cars modern are designed to function at temperatures of coolant quite high by reasons of emissions. However, to those temperatures, the bay engine itself becomes in an oven that heats all the components surrounding, and the ECU often begins to protect the engine, reducing the power. The trick number 2 consists in to install a switch of temperature of activation low for the fan of the radiator or, in its defect, a system of control manual from the cabin. The objective is that the fan principle itself turn on at the 82 to 85 degrees in place of to wait to the 98. Upon maintaining the engine in this range thermal more low, you avoid that the metals themselves expand in excess and you maintain the viscosity of the oil in its point optimal of flow. The most important is that the computer detects that the engine is in a zone safe of operation constant, what to it allows to maintain the maps of power maximum during much more time without to enter in modes of reduction by heat. In the field, many enthusiasts simply bridge the relay of the fan with a switch in the dashboard. Before of a race or a climb of mountain, you turn on the fan manually to pre-cool the system. It is a trick simple that ensures that, while other cars are losing power by the heat accumulated, your beast continue pushing with the same force that in the first acceleration of the morning. It is the control total over the thermodynamics of the vehicle. The true mastery in this point not is only to turn on the fan, but to understand the inertia thermal of the block of iron or aluminum. An advanced trick consists in to install a diode in the circuit of the air conditioned so that, upon activating the fan manually, the ECU not detect an extra load of engine and not alter the idle. Upon lowering the temperature of operation from the 100 degrees to the 85 stable, you reduce the pressure internal in the system of refrigeration, what prevents leaks in the gaskets and hoses under stress. But the most important is the effect over the manifold of admission. Upon being the engine more cold, the heat radiant that rises towards the admission is minor, allowing that the system of coolant bypass of the post 5 work with an efficiency of the 100%. It is an ecosystem of cold that maintains to the engine in a state of eternal mourning, where the air is always dense and the metal never itself expands until the point of to generate friction parasitic excessive. Number 1. The grounding kit of injectors and sensors. We arrive to the post number 1 with the change most cheap and, paradoxically, one of the most ignored. The stabilization of ground of high fidelity. As we mentioned in the chapter previous, the system electric is vital, but there is a detail specific that marks the difference between an engine that functions well and one that functions of form brutal. The reference of voltage of the injectors and the sensors critical. The sensors of position of the crankshaft, of phase and the proper injectors of fuel operate with variations of millivolts. If the ground electric of the block of the engine has even if be a minimum resistance due to the oxidation or to cables of factory mediocre, the signal itself becomes noisy. The grounding kit dedicated for injectors consists in to pull cables of ground of high capacity directly from the rail of fuel or the points of mounting of the sensors towards the pole negative of the battery. Not to you trust of the structure of the chassis, the metal of the car is a conductor poor compared with a cable of copper pure. Upon giving to the injectors a ground perfect and direct, its time of response itself becomes ultra-precise. The delivery of power itself becomes linear, disappear those small jerks that at times themselves feel upon accelerating to bottom and the engine sounds more sharp. This is the trick definitive because it costs cents in cable of copper and terminals, but optimizes the function of the component most important of the engine, the system of injection. An engine that injects the fuel with a precision of microseconds is an engine that delivers each horse of force available of form, brutal and constant. It is the culmination of the transformation internal, electricity perfect, air cold, geometry aggressive, and a mechanics that already not asks permission for to be free. The secret final of the grounding kit lies in the elimination of the noise of loop of ground. In a car modern, the block engine acts as the return of current of the spark plugs, what generates peaks of voltage of thousands of volts flowing by the metal. If the sensors of position of the camshaft or the injectors share that same mass, their signals of low tension itself see contaminated. The trick of Field Definitive is to utilize terminals of copper plated in gold or silver to avoid the corrosion galvanic and to connect the injectors to a point of ground clean, directly in the chassis, separated of the block engine where discharge the spark plugs. Upon isolating these signals, the ECU stops to receive data dirty and not has that to apply factors of correction by error. The delivery of power itself becomes so linear and sharp that the engine appears to have been balanced internally in a laboratory. It is the Harmony Electric Absolute, and it is the change that, by less of $10 in wiring, offers the greatest gain in sensation of control and violence in the acceleration. We have traversed a path that began with simple resets of software and has ended in the hacking deep of the physics of the automobile. These 14 changes not are only modifications, they are a declaration of intentions. Upon applying these knowledges, you have left off to be a simple passenger in a machine designed by a committee of marketing to become the architect of your own performance. Your car now breathes better, burns the fuel with more fury, itself sticks to the ground with intelligence aerodynamic and reacts to your orders with a precision electric that before was non-existent.